698765431. You're a totally different number, but it happens to be normalcy in reverse. If a person is a smoker, there will be a number in their body that identifies their desire and perhaps their need to have that nicotine smoking experience. Now, if you take that number and give it to them in reverse, you are giving them a normal number. A person that doesn't smoke, doesn't have any desire to smoke, doesn't have any need to smoke, will be a totally reverse number. And I've done it with many people that they'll read that number, and I say, no, when you get that desire, you have to have that next cigarette. Read this number over 4 or 5 times. And they'll do that. And then one night I was sitting next to a person. He was going to go out and have a smoke from the inside the building. And so I said, well, here, before you go, just read this number. And he did that. And so he continued to sit there. And a few minutes later, I said, are you going to go have your smoke? He said, I no longer feel like having one. I don't need one. So what we don't understand about our body and our systems and our energy patterns is probably a mountain. And perhaps all I'm doing is I'm at the foot of the mountain kicking a rock, and I'm just, all I'm able to do is sort of bring concepts to light as to maybe the reality of what we're dealing with is far simpler, far simpler than the complexity that we have entered into with chemicals and drugs that are damaging, that are harmful in our effort to normalize. Let's take people in that are having emotional problems and whatnot. My God, and there's no gain. I talked to nurses, and back in Eastern Canada, one of them recently, and she says, I work in this type of a hospital, and she says, I see them come in when they're young, and we basically medicate them, and we send them home, and they're on medication, and a year or so later, they're back in, and they're worse off. They basically have lost ground. And she says, and you watch this going over the period of years that I've been at it, which I think she said was around 13 years. She said, it is so sad to see the deterioration of these people, none of them ever getting better, because the program is all based on, what it is. If in fact you are in a human body, basically operates at 7 basic frequencies: frequency 8, frequency 14, frequency 20, frequency 23, frequency 28, frequency 38. Now, these frequencies are just basically functional frequencies, and you're born with them. And it may very well be part of the energy of life in the form of promethium that basically brings in these particular frequencies. If frequency 8 is missing, you're looking for a major infection in the body. If frequency 14 is missing, you're looking for an autoimmune problem in the body. If frequency 20 is missing, then you're looking for schizophrenia or other emotional problems along that line. If frequency 23 is missing, you're looking for bipolar or you're looking for cancer in the body. If you're missing 28, you're looking for ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, or you're looking for the likes of Alzheimer's or dementia. That number will be missing if you have any one of those 3. And if you're missing 38, you're looking for emotional problems of some nature. And so these are just clues that basically are all supported by a balanced body. And we can put frequency 20 back in to a body that basically having a missing frequency 20 and basically suffering from schizophrenia type of behavior. We can replace that number in the body. It's not 20. That is a consequence of another number that you have to do to establish 20. But we can do that, and there's perhaps a world out there yet to be identified and developed where the energetic balancing of these people is possibly a far more beneficial approach to it than chemically trying to subdue the problem. And that's primarily what they're doing. They're just basically hitting you gently over the head to subdue you with chemicals.
It's interesting. I just found out the other day some fascinating additional information, and it's going to seem like this example doesn't apply to what you're saying, but it really does. If in fact we telepathically can project in 6 seconds billions of miles away, that tells you right there that we are bioenergetic, we are electrical, that we truly are all energy. Therefore, that bioenergetic approach has to be at the core of everything. Fascinating.
It is, and if you have a frequency in your body of 108, and some people have it naturally, it's not very common, but it does happen. But we have established the mathematical makeup that you can read a number, once again, 7 or 8 times, and you will evolve with having a frequency 108 in your body. You now can take your pet dog who is suffering from whatever. Let's assume that he is having urinary problems and he's leaking. And you can basically take a number that we have in our manual, and you'll read by putting your right hand on the dog's left-hand side. The left-hand side of your body is the energy entering into the body. The right-hand side is the discharge side. So when you take your right hand, you basically are taking energy out of your body or passing it through your body and putting it in the animal on its left-hand side. And you can read that number 7, 8 times, and you have just read for the dog what the dog is incapable of doing, but you've just put that energy into the dog. And you have strengthened perhaps the bladder meridian, you've strengthened the bladder, you've got rid of a bladder infection. There's any number of things that could be attributing to this leakage problem. And so you're able to help normalize that function in the animal by doing numbers. We have a horse. The horse is now 31 years old. I can't tell you how many bloody bales of hay I've packed for this horse over its lifetime. But anyway, he's still out there, and he's been down twice. And one day we went out, and he's laying on his side out there, and I immediately grabbed my book, and I have a number. It's 16 digits long, and I can read that number, and it will be. And if I can read any number in that whole range, and let's say it's the very first number on the right-hand end, which will be the 16th digit in the number, and if I can read that number, or if I can read the one next to it and then one next to it, then he is entering into a final life stage. And that number will continue to grow from the right to the left until I can finally read the very last number, and he's dead.
I don't think I get it.
Let's just picture a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's basically 16 digits long.
Okay.
They're all single digits. And if, in fact, something is dying, you'll be able to read the very right-hand end of that number. You read it from left to right, but you'll read the very last number you read will be identifiable. If it's further advanced, you'll read the last 2. If it's further advanced, the last 3. If it's further advanced, the last 4. Now, it happens to be the first 4 numbers coming from the right going left is what you're reading, but it's progressively moving as a person or the animal dies. It's progressively moving from the right to the left. And so you've got that long 16-digit number. Now, once we started to work on the horse, we propped up the heart, we propped up the lungs, we propped up the stomach, we did everything that we could to get all his essential energies working. All at once, the number started to move from the left towards the right. In other words, it started to go the other way, only because we were bringing life back into the animal.
What was wrong with your horse?
He had got some Stachybotrys moldy hay.
Oy.
And horses can't handle moldy hay. And, as we got him back into stability, then we started to reach out and start to pursue what in the hell is causing this. And so I just read for Stachybotrys mold, and sure enough, he had Stachybotrys mold. So my wife gets out in the corral, and she starts to read the Stachybotrys mold elimination number, which we have. And she starts to read that, and he starts to flail. So she has to get the hell out of there. And she comes out, and she is a 108 frequency, so she telepathically continues to send energy to the horse inside the corral. And inside of 15 minutes or so, he gets up on his feet, and the numbers have completely disappeared and have gone off the